This episode of Distraction is sponsored by Landmark College, offering 360-degree support for students with learning disabilities, ADHD, and ASD. Learn more at lcdistraction.org. Landmark College, we teach differently. You're trying to set all these people free from these
exactly.
These basically mind-forged manacles. You know,
mind-forged manacles. We shall write an opera. Exactly. And to set business free, too. It's not just the whole conceit that there are employees on one side of a vast divide and management on the other. You know why that is? Because the bureaucratic system in its evil genius rewards people for stepping over to the other side.
Hello, this is Dr. Ned Hallowell for Distraction. I'm honestly really excited to talk to my guest today. Her name is Liz Ryan, and she is, by credentials, she is the CEO of Human Workplace. She founded Human Workplace. She's a former Fortune 500 HR senior vice president and the world's most widely read career advisor. She must be incredibly sought after because she's the architect of Human Workplace Vision and the author of Reinvention Roadmap, Break the Rules to Get the Job You Want and the Career You Deserve. I can't tell you how many people must want to talk to you and must want to read your book, get your advice, go to your LinkedIn site, go to your blog, your roadmap. You must be besieged by people wanting to get your advice. So let's give them your advice free of charge today on this podcast.
100%.
How do you want to jump in? You must know right off the top of your head what are the most common questions you get asked.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the big thing is, where this came from, the human workplace idea, is that I was, as you mentioned, an HR person for millions of years. And I was an HR person, but I didn't come from HR school, as it were. My background is classical music. I'm an opera singer.
No kidding.
Yeah. So I kind of fell into HR way back in the early 80s.
Wow. And
I was working for a growing company, and my boss said, be an HR manager, have an HR department. I'd been in the company before I took on that job, but through a circuitous path, we had actually a union election at a distribution center in our company, and I was running customer service and order processing, and I kind of went down there and figured out the whole thing, and they ended up deciding not to take the union, and they put me in HR as a result. So that's how I became an HR manager. But he said, the company is growing. We need amazing people. We need them to feel really good about working here. Just do that. And that is actually, if you think about it, the organic and obvious way to do HR, but it's not the common way.
Sure.
And so I just, hired great people and made it a great place to work and advocated for the employees all the time, which is, by the way, advocating for the company and its success. There doesn't need to be this ridiculous sort of tension and acrimonious relationship between employers and employees, but it's there. We all know it's there.
Yes.
And so I always had in the back of my mind, one day when I have time, I'm going to deal with this larger problem. Because right now, I'm able to make this place, this company, a great place to work.
Yeah.
And now we would say a human workplace. And we grew from, I think, 30 employees when I started there to, I don't know, several thousand when I left. And sales-wise, I think $1 million in sales when I started at age 19 and 1979 to about $300 to $400 million. I've lost track. And then they sold to American Greetings, so much larger. It was a greeting card company, recycled paper greetings. But it was so obvious, that most of what we do in HR is so broken. It's just so dysfunctional and awful and anti-human.
Yes.
And so I said, well, I want to do this on a bigger stage. I went to another company. I left there when I was 28 in 1988 and went to a startup at the time called U.S. Robotics, technology company. And they said the exact same thing. We're going to get really big, and we need you to hire amazing people and make it a fantastic place to work. And it was like, cool, let's do it. And we grew that company from 100 employees to 10,000 and from $15 million in sales when I got there to $3 billion.
Wow.
And how? The obvious way. Make it awesome. Make human decisions instead of, penny pinching, idiotic dollars and cents decisions in the moment.
Right.
Don't rule by policy. Rule by what's right. People are very afraid of departing from, well, if we make an exception for one person, other people won't understand. We'll have a backlash. You know what they will understand is if they feel good about working here.
Uh-huh.
And they trust us as managers. And there aren't secrets, and there aren't tons of closed-door meetings, and we don't disrespect people, and we don't write policies that totally negate people's obligations, outside of work and discount them. So it's much easier, it's cheaper, it's faster, it's slipperier, it's more fun to have a warm environment at work. But for some reason, it's very scary and off-putting to people who view their jobs through the lens of fear.
Yes.
Which brings them to uniformity and dulling down of any kind of creative.
Yes.
And so I said, well, you know what, one day, I have a lot of kids, I have 5 kids.
Wow.
I had that going on. I was singing opera all the time.
Wow.
And so I said, one day I'm going to dive into this project when I have more time. And that finally happened, about 10 years ago that I was consulting and writing and all that stuff. I said, we got to seriously, sort of create the blueprint for this human workplace model, both for working people who need to understand how to empower themselves and run their careers the way entrepreneurs run their businesses. No differently. And then also, of course, for organizations who want to walk this path and humanize their own workplaces, it's very easy to do, but you have to step out of fear, personal fear of each manager, each executive, in order to do that.
And so you left the robotic company.
Well, I left U.S. Robotics back in 1997. They were sold. And I knew it was, I was devastated because I didn't want that to happen.
Right.
But I said, well, there's got to be something good to come out of this. And my personal goal, I was 37 and pregnant with my 4th kid.
Wow.
And my personal goal was, well, this has been an unbelievably cool job, especially for somebody who never wanted to work in the corporate world. My dad was a corporate executive, and I would go to his office when I was a kid and say, hey, I'm glad my dad likes it, but shoot me in the face before I do this kind of work. This is gross. With the cubicles and the desk, oh, no, baby. I'm going to be on stage. My career plan was opera singer first and Broadway person as a fallback, super impractical career plan. But in a way, it is performance what I do when I'm on stage. I'm singing, and you'll be singing, everyone will be singing, dancing. But it's the idea that why is business so dull? Why is it so black and white? Why is it so formulaic? Why are we so bound up and afraid all the time in the business world, which should be fun and spontaneous and warm and human and creative?
Yes. So 1997, robotics.
Left U.S. Robotics, had a baby, consulted, helped my friends, started an opera company, toured around with the opera company. I started an online community for women in Chicago called Chickwit. That grew huge and international.
Wow.
Took a lot of my time for a long time. I was, writing, speaking, drawing, whatever. So I did the women's community till like 2007, 11 years ago. Then I did a lot more consulting, speaking, blah, blah, blah. Started writing for a Business Week, and then Yahoo, and then...
You had a 5th child along the way.
Sorry?
You had a 5th child along the way.
Oh, yeah. Good, thank you. Good call. Yes, that is number 5. We moved to Colorado in 2001, and I had him here, so he's a Colorado native. And then really 2012, Human Workplace. I was on the phone, actually, with my old boss from U.S. Robotics, the founder, Casey Cowell, the founder of U.S. Robotics. And I said, I'm frustrated. The name of my company was Ask Liz Ryan, And he goes, no, you don't want people to ask you. You want to teach them how to figure it out for themselves, A. And B, name the company what you want to bring about. And I was just like, what? Human Workplace, of course. And the URL was available. I said, why not? Do it. Now it's trademarked. But it's the idea that this process is completely available to everyone in every position, every job seeker, every student, every corporate executive. It's a personal decision to step, and it's not a one step, it's a lifelong journey, but out of fear and into trust.
Yeah,
and that sounds very hippie-ish. I know I'm calling you from Boulder, Colorado, hippie capital of the world.
No, it doesn't sound hippie. It sounds sensible.
It is sensible. It is so sensible. When job seekers say, for example, I wrote a column last week for Forbes, and it was something about some rant about, things not to do and say at an interview, not from the standpoint of displeasing the interviewer, but from the standpoint of groveling, right? Because that's a big problem. Well, you can't blame job seekers for groveling. They're trained to grovel in an interview.
Right.
Most of the conventional job search advice advises people, do whatever they want you to do.
Kiss ass. If you want us to say kiss ass.
Kiss ass up and down. It's so disgusting.
Right.
And I say, honey bun, if they need you to do that in the interview, how could you possibly stand working there?
Right.
It's going to be horrible for your body and your brain.
Right.
So I'm writing this story about, just how to stay in your body and breathe and, avoid that tendency that we have to grovel.
So if people want the formula, is it in the book, Reinvention Roadmap?
Oh, yeah. The book Reinvention Roadmap is all about that. It starts with the idea that, we all go through shakes and shocks and disruption and, we get laid off and the job goes away and it's all this stuff is traumatic. And in our society, we don't really deal with that as the trauma that it creates. We don't. We don't talk about it. We don't acknowledge it. We don't say, that sucks for you. I'm so sorry. There's recovery. None of it. We say, well, get on Indeed and get another job like it's nothing. But people, are not ready to go out there at full strength right away. Who is? Even though we need money to live, obviously. So the first part of the book is all about sort of, collecting yourself and realizing that these disruptions and these shakes and shocks are awful, and it's okay to feel bad about them, but they also make us stronger in the long run. Not that you're going to get that learning right away. It's going to take time, but it really will turn out to be a good thing, and this transition and the reinvention will turn out to be a good thing for you down the road. Then we get into getting altitude. Where have I been in my life? Where do I want to go out of that? That's a question most working people are not even allowed or encouraged to ask. Take the first job you can get. Why? First job might suck.
Right.
And we deserve to work in places where the people get us and therefore deserve us.
So how do I pay the rent while I'm looking for
great question.
Yeah.
A million ways. One thing is, not to sound too hippie-ish right now, but, that rent problem will recede as your confidence grows. You will find ways to get a roommate or move in with mom and dad, or the practical stuff it always hits us first, right? Because we're wired that way. And you literally go away with your friends camping and you come back and you feel better about it and you see new solutions. You've experienced that. Everybody has that time, that altitude and softening around the problem, and it maybe isn't as dire. Most people have more ability, just even with their bank account, to deal with that kind of disruption or job loss than they at first think they do. And that's normal because we all grew up with the idea of Maslow's hierarchy, except that middle section of the pyramid is like infinitely tall.
Right.
I can't feel okay until I have a lot more money than I have now. Well, actually, I find more self-actualized people with no money.
How much difference did it make that you'd found the right mate?
Found the right mate?
Yeah, you married somebody,
My
right?
dude?
Yeah.
That's a great question. I have no idea. I don't know how you would suss that out.
Right.
But I'm grateful as hell every day that I did.
How long have you been with him?
I met my husband, at that company I mentioned, Recycled Paper Products, back in the day, 1985, I think he came to work there.
Wow.
He dated some other girl in that company. What?
Yeah.
They broke up. We started dating. That was a kind of, risky for me because I was HR manager. And I remember going to my boss and being like, a super chill guy, my boss, and saying, I just want you to hear from me before you hear from somebody else, but me and this guy, are like a thing and whatever. He's like, I kind of figured you'd come to all the softball games, company softball games, and, and I'm like, well, I'm HR, I got to come to the softball game.
Yeah.
But so then I left to go to U.S. Robotics, so that solved that problem.
Yeah.
And then we got married in 92, so we're actually celebrating our 26th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And when did you discover you have ADHD?
You're so funny. I'm going to say in my body, 5 years old,
Yeah.
But they didn't diagnose back then.
Yeah, no.
So I'm going to say as an adult.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 years ago.
Did anyone ever, I'm just telling because I can tell just talking to you have it.
Well, you know what? The thing is, I am thrilled to have stuff get normalized and accepted.
Yeah.
I have a couple kids on the spectrum, maybe more, who knows?
Yeah.
But a couple that it's sort of out there.
Yeah.
And I think the lack of understanding and the lack of room for that kind of brain chemistry helped me in a weird way because it helped me get a little bit tougher and develop a little thicker skin.
Right.
It was weird as a little kid to say, well, I'm not an idiot. Why are these teachers so down on my case all the time?
Right.
And getting sent to the first time I got sent to the principal's office, I think it was second grade, it was because the teacher just, without saying anything, got up and wrote 2 columns of words on the board.
Yeah.
Just 2 columns of words.
Yeah.
And I just organically, I said, I got it. And she said, what? And I said, I see the misspelled word. It's gerbil. It's supposed to be Gerbil. She sends me to the principal's office. She didn't know she misspelled the word. And I was like, how could you be a teacher and spell a word on the board that is not a common word and not know how it's spelled and not know that you misspelled it? It was just so unfathomable.
And then punish a student who points it out.
And the teacher, I spent time in that principal. And nobody ever attempted to bridge the gap in any way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They didn't attempt. It was just good and bad, black and white. That's my problem with the business world now. Why the hell would you take a 45-year-old person and put them on probation? You're on probation. The hell?
Right.
It's so insulting. It's so inhuman. And it's a weird industrial revolution holdover that doesn't get the examination and condemnation that it deserves.
So you're trying to set all these people free from these these basically mind-forged manacles.
Mind-forged manacles. We shall write an opera. Exactly. And to set business free too. It's not just the whole conceit that there are employees on one side of a vast divide and management on the other. You know why that is? Because the bureaucratic system in its evil genius rewards people for stepping over to the other side.
Yeah.
And I felt that as a baby supervisor. People would say to me, well, don't be too friendly with these employees. And I would be like, I am. They are my friends. What? We worked together. I was not a supervisor last week, and we would chill together. And now I'm a supervisor. I'm not going to not be their friends because we're a supervisor. I like them.
Yeah.
And I rely on them. It's a weird, it's genius. It's evil. It's horrible. It plays to the sort of best and worst of human psychology. Now I'm a supervisor, so these people ain't shit to me.
Yes.
And so that was a visceral, back 30-some years ago. There have been 15, 20 of those visceral, gut punches along the way saying, this is just wrong. And it's stupid. It's bad for shareholders. It's bad for the planet. It's bad for, individuals, does damage to them. I was doing some personal career coaching for a long time, one-on-one, and a lot of executives. And making $350,000, $650,000 a year does not make people happier or healthier. They were, in distress.
Right.
And so afraid of all things, I might lose my job. I say, well, okay, wait, you've got to have millions in the bank at this point. What would it take? It's not the money.
Yeah.
It's the status.
Yeah.
And the sense of identity coming out of that little business card.
Right. And but so your message is you actually can create a workplace or a job for yourself where you can create, conditions of love and respect and make a lot of money and contribute to the world.
Yeah, and not only can you, but the path to get there is exactly what will enable you to do it. So it's not luck. It's not, I have to find a better employer. Yes, you do, but you are also going to make them better by walking in. And that's, kind of, I think, a subtle concept for a lot of people. They don't realize their influence. When I was an HR person, I always wanted to convey somehow to the employees on the other side of the conference room door who had no idea what's being discussed inside the conference room, how important they were as individuals, such that a manager would be in a meeting and say, Samantha, man, she's so amazing, and she wants to transfer to the Western region, and if she transfers, that's going to kill our second half of the year. And I wanted to run out and say, Samantha, you know what your manager just said about you? Because I knew that she was not getting that message directly from that person.
Yes.
Because of why? Because of fear.
Yes.
Tension built into the relationship that if she knew how valuable she were, she would ask for more money or she would wield more power. And I thought, it's such a broken aspect of work. People do not know how valuable they are, and managers have an incentive to not tell them.
Oh, gosh. I mean, that's it. And your campaign is to tell them.
To tell them.
Yeah.
I tell them every day. I say our deal is methodology wrapped in mojo.
Uh-huh.
And the methodology does no good without that lift in self-esteem. And people say, well, how can I lift my own self-esteem? Believe it or not, you can. You know that. You can.
But what do you do when they don't believe you?
God bless them, I say.
Uh-huh.
You're on your path. I don't try to convince anybody. That would be the most hopeless, pointless exercise ever. Corporate executives, why should I do this? Don't, baby doll. Go away. Have a good life. Don't bother me anymore.
Yeah.
Doubting working people, I totally get it. I'm cynical. You kidding?
Yeah.
I'm from northern New Jersey, honey. They don't get more cynical. And I'm doubting. I'm not like, let's, all held hands.
How did you break your cynicism?
It broke.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it broke. I had all these shocks along the way. HR is broken. Business is broken.
Right. Leadership
is broken.
Right.
Job search is broken. Part of it was I became an HR person, and I'm in the job like a week, and I was mad. I was ticked off at my boss. I was like, really? I'm doing customer service. I'm out there on the front line of the real business with the real customers and the suppliers and rock and rolling, and you stick me in HR? What, do you hate me? Why? He said, you're not seeing the vision. He said, you can have a lot more influence as the HR manager of this company, making it an amazing place. He didn't say start a business, start a movement, become a thought leader. But he said, See, he says, who told you can't speak to the customers anymore? I was like, good point. Good point. And so he broke a big mold for me. Mm-hmm. But what was going on in the early 80s? AIDS. And so I have young guys who are dying at work, not dying physically at work, but going to the hospital and being dead in a week.
Right.
And I'm 24. And, I called the HR association, like, what do I... We have no idea. It's not an HR issue. What? We have stuff. We have domestic violence. We have a woman over here with bruises on her face. Yeah, it's not an HR. Called the EAP. I was like, what is HR then? What is the point?
But see, you're someone whose story could have been you got bitter and got fired and burned out. Instead, you caught fire and just grew and started your own company, and you're going gangbusters.
Well, and I think that part of it is at that moment of freeze, of fear, of panic. We've all had it. What wins out? What wins out? The fear of losing what you have or the fear of not being yourself? And for whatever reason, maybe, as you said, being an undiagnosed spectrum kid, atypical whatever.
Right.
Kid in Catholic school in the 60s, just in distress, solid straight through from first grade to whatever.
Yeah.
It made me say, well, I'm sorry. I'm going to say my thing. I know I can wait tables. I know I can be a nanny if I lose this job. Yeah. And it's not like they're paying me so much that, at a certain point you have to speak. And it happened over and over. Even into my late 30s, there was times when, even at U.S. Robotics, with heavy heart, I would go into my CEO's office saying, I might get fired right now, but, I'm not in charge. Mother Nature is in charge. And I would tell him. And I would use the F word.
I'll bet you would.
and it worked out. And he would say, okay, well, I'll take another look at it,
I'd like to pause the conversation here to talk for a moment about our wonderful sponsor, Landmark College. There's just a tremendous flexibility to the experience you could have at Landmark. You don't have to, it's not a lockstep kind of curriculum. When you go there, all brains are different, and Landmark understands that better than most places. You present yourself, and they'll sort of assess you and decipher with you what are your strengths and what are the areas where you're challenged. And based on that, they'll figure out what you need to beef up your weaknesses and what you need to add to your strengths, knowing that you build a life on developed strengths, not just remediated weaknesses. You might be looking for a transition semester to help you tackle the core curriculum back at your regular college. Or you might be looking for a fully comprehensive bachelor's program. Whatever, Landmark College can craft an educational experience that meets your needs. Flexible, customizable, Landmark College in Putney, Vermont can do it for you. To schedule a tour of their beautiful campus in Putney, Vermont, or to get more information, visit lcdistraction.org. All right, let's get back to the discussion. You're fantastic, Liz.
Oh, and likewise.
You really are. This is what people need to hear to set themselves free instead of being stuck, and they think, and what happens is they get stuck, better than I do. It's the Dilbert situation. They get stuck and they think there's no hope. I feel
like when Dilbert came out, my dad was still working as in New York as a magazine publisher, and he called me and said, "Is this stuff real? Is this how bad it is?" And I said, "My darling father, it's so much worse than even what Dilbert puts in the comics." But I was a little disheartened by it because it's nice to, misery loves company, and it's great to have that wry chuckle. Mm-hmm. But I think Dilbert and the mentality got a lot of people in the mode, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
There's nothing to be done.
Yeah.
And they say it to me all the time.
Yeah.
And I say, there's so much to be done.
Yes.
And the great news is, it's you. You control it.
Yeah.
And that's a scary message.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep, it is. It is, because it means if I'm not doing anything, gosh, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I could be doing something.
Yeah, and don't remind me.
Yeah.
And my thing is, you know what? No blame, no shame. It's all perfect. It's all fine wherever you are now. If you feel a little breeze behind your back, then take a step. And if you don't, then don't.
Yeah, and at least get Liz's book, Reinvention Roadmap. At least do that. And you can hear from talking to her, she's not guilting you into it. She's encouraging you into it.
We have so much on our plates. It's unbelievable. In fact, that's a kind of a central premise at Human Workplace. It's just hard to be a grown-up. It's just hard.
Yeah.
And we don't acknowledge how hard it is, so I don't want to put anything more on people.
No. You're offering them an opportunity.
Exactly.
Well, Liz Ryan, the Human Workplace and Reinvention Roadmap, break the rules to get the job you want and career you deserve. And beyond that, the life you deserve. She's encouraging you and has shown you by example that it can be done. Don't just listen and say, dream on, or sure, dream on, and then do it. And get her book, and she'll show you how. As much as I don't want to, I have to say goodbye to you now.
Oh, goodness gracious. We can talk anytime you want.
I can't thank you enough for coming on.
Thank you, and likewise. Have a great rest of the day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
If you'd like to learn more about Liz, her work, or her book, Reinvention Roadmap, Break the Rules to Get the Job You Want and Career You Deserve, go to her website, humanworkplace.com. Remember to send your questions and show ideas to connect@distractionpodcast.com or call us at 844-55-CONNECT. That's 844-55-CONNECT, and leave us a message. Distraction is produced by Collisions, the podcast division of CRN International. Collisions, podcasts for curious people. This episode was produced by Sarah Gurton and Christina Torres, along with our audio engineers Scott Person and Pat Keogh.